or far-term value, and then we have a tendency to try and process a whole bunch of immediate stuff at the beginning of the run with new data, which is what we're doing now,
right.
And then in parts 2 and 3 to get into the short term, and then 4, 5 get into the near, starting to shade towards the far, and then 6 usually cleans up with the far and then catches back up on the immediacy values that have been neglected from all of the other chunks of processing. We only do one chunk at a time. In other words, we can't process immediacy values continuously.
I'll tell you, again, every time you and I talk, you blow my mind with it. But one thing I've probably heard from a couple of hundred of our listeners, and they all keep asking, and I apologize, I keep forgetting to ask or at least remind you. People are saying, how can we learn about this ahead of time? And I keep saying, well, you can subscribe to Clif's WebBot runs and tell everybody what they can do, how they can, because especially now you've called 3 or 4 major world events that I'm aware of.
Okay, let's be real clear about that. I would dispute you because I can't, until I can say such and such a date, such and such a time, we're doing nothing more than providing a vague background of probabilities and potentialities. Okay, but we've been okay at that. I mean,
yes, I guess you have.
We've done okay within our range of goals.
Yeah, starting with 9/11 and all the way down until the hurricane we just had, and who knows what else. But anyway, how can people become subscribers?
Well, here's the deal on this.
Yeah.
We tried to run it where we kept our subscriber costs low, but we didn't have enough interest, and we were running into huge amounts of debt because of our bandwidth, so we had to abandon that approach. So what we did was we set a price that allows us to pay for our costs and for me to support Igor, the guy who does all my server work and gargantuan lifting and moving of data.
Yeah.
And that price is $150 for new subscribers. But believe me, if anything pops up that needs to get out there, it'll be on George Uhr's Urban Survival free, because we don't want money from people for whom $150 is real money.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I live hand to mouth here, basically not getting rich, so to speak, and barely hovering above. Well, I'm within the poverty level. There's no question about that in the United States. So I fully understand, and I don't need that money. I don't need that bad karma. So if anybody's really desperate to find this stuff out, they can find it out for free, because we'll release it through George whenever we have anything that makes sense.
Yeah. However,
other than that, if you've got $150 and it's rather casual and you spend that kind of stuff on magazines in a year and you really want to do this, you can participate in one of our runs by going to Half Past Human and following the links.
Wonderful. Okay. And does it last for the whole year or just one run?
It's one run at this stage because the costs are quite staggering. So it's about a 6 to 8 week process. So it expands 8 weeks, but you get 6 reports in that 8 week period because it takes us a couple of weeks to gather enough data to make it meaningful.
Okay, wonderful. Because I really would hope that people, if, like you said, they have some discretionary funds.
And this has got to be purely discretionary, because bear in mind at this point, I'm so staggered by the impact to our country from this that I don't need that money. I mean, if anybody wants to sign up now and they do it through PayPal and they put Alta1305/Katrina, I'll send 100% of whatever I get out of that subscription to PayPal, or excuse me, to Katrina Relief through PayPal. Other than the PayPal fee of like $4, 100% of it is going to go to the Katrina Relief, because I'm not desperate and these people are. I have relatives in Missouri, and they escaped by a hair's breadth.
They sure did. It's just what has happened to this country. People are referring it or comparing it to the 1908 earthquake in California, but they had 5,000 to 8,000 people killed. If we ever learn the truth, which I doubt, but if we ever did, I think we're going to find that we've had at least 10,000 to 20,000 people die.
Oh, I think far in excess of that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the statistics would argue closer to 100,000 will be dead by the time they finally seal New Orleans off.
Oh, yeah, with disease, starvation, what have you.
Yeah, just over the next 4 days. I mean, that's really the critical time. The latter math is a particular kind of math that originates out of a Scottish thinker who talks about how viruses spread in complex systems, and it's very much applicable to this. And you've got a very narrow window before every rung of your ladder all falls down at once.
Oh my gosh, it is, Cliff. I don't even know
and
what
then
to
it's going
say.
to spread. I mean, just think of the impact. Now we've got
sir.
to house 5 million people temporarily, and those
Yeah.
will become permanent refugee camps, and we're starting that whole cycle here in the United States.
Sure, because they will never be able to, even if they wanted to, they will never be able to build New Orleans as it has been. No way.
Correct, and we have no guts at all in our leadership. No one's willing to stand on up and say, okay, for the next year I can live on $2, and I'm going to, move the White House to Missouri, and we're going to set up shop and start doing things right. You just don't see that kind of stuff coming out of Washington.
No.
They're patting each other on the back for hauling Congress away from the golf courses to approve a $10 billion spending bill, when this is going to be perhaps a quarter of the U.S. economy is going to take a hit from this.
Wow.
I mean, we're getting $3 gallon gas up here in Pacific Northwest, and we have local refineries.
Oh yeah, and we're well over that in most of the gas stations, up to and we're talking about regular gas, not high test.
Exactly. We're talking the cheap stuff. I'm a poor guy. We don't buy that expensive guzzle juice. No.
You betcha. But it's up to about 308, 309, and I've seen it in some of your chain stations up to about 312. And Cliff,
availability is next. Remember, along with this, from that from that January run all the way up through this last bit, has been the continuing theme of restricted movement and shortages. And we're talking shortages of everything, and restricted movement to the point where freeways become empty, simply because people are not allowed to move.
Allowed meaning
don't have the wherewithal, either through policy or economy.
Or both, actually.
In a shortage, we'll find that either gasoline will soar to the limit that they will allow politically, in which case they'll put in a rationing system, which I don't believe they've got the guts for, or they will allow it to soar to the point where economically it's rationed.
Yes.
And I suggest that's going to be $20 or $30 a gallon.
What?
Yeah.
Honest? Oh my gosh.
I mean, we're at that level now. What we risk at this stage is a nasty-tempered government not seeing the larger picture. These people are not holistic thinkers. They're not really aware that their actions now are being monitored globally to see whether or not to sell off the U.S. dollar.
Oh, Cliff. Oh, my gosh. This is the stuff that George has been talking about for a long time. I mean, this
since 1995. Yeah.
This could be the impetus to shut it all down.
This right now is hovering. We are critically close to a tipping point on that. There is panic already being detected in some of our early data that comes in from overseas.
Oh my gosh. Do you or have you picked up at all the possibility that while we are weakened, especially not now, but maybe when the second event happens, because
you're assuming it's hitting us.
Could you? Well, yes, I am. That's right. Could you foresee, or have you picked up any information about a possible invasion of the U.S.?
No.
Okay.
I see we got some real problems, and we're rapidly approaching, as I say, a tipping point in which certain things are going to occur, and we're going to slide into what our data is calling a 10-year depression. And, again, our data says they won't rebuild New Orleans, that'll be, that this is the American diaspora. We're going to start putting these people out in camps that'll eventually become permanent settlements. And there's no thought to that. There's no huge area of temporary housing. We don't have the resources, so this is going to be a massive drain on the economy. And there's just not a whole lot of thought being given to much of how they're handling it.
What a scary, scary situation.
Right, and for at least the next 9 days, it's going to get a lot worse. But that's as it ripples out. Yeah.
Would you suggest to people, and I know this isn't, or maybe it does show up in the WebBot runs, that people should prepare not only mentally but physically, meaning, get some extra food, get some extra clothing, get some extra, whatever it is, just on the outside chance that something might happen where each and every one of us could be isolated for as long as 30 days before we could get any type help. And here's a perfect example of it.
I think that's reasonable advice under the best of circumstances. And again, here's a perfect example of it. The government has always maintained they can come in and save you in 72 hours. We now know that to be a myth.
You're right.
Okay, we also know that they're incapable of organizing it such that we don't see these kind of events occur. There was no communication to tell the people in New Orleans that, hey, you want to loot, that's fine, but bear in mind you're evacuating. These people still yet don't know that the city must be abandoned.
Yeah, exactly.
Nor do they have any concept of where they're going, how far, how long,
Nope.
etc.
Nope.
So I would suggest that it makes sense for everybody to be as self-sufficient as possible,
You betcha.
just on a species basis.
Yeah, I mean, and these idiots down there are shooting at the helicopters, taking the people to safety, shooting at the, I mean,
It makes little sense, yes.
Yeah, it does. Without getting really into it and sharing what my thoughts really are, we have a problem. But possibly this is something that is going to be a warning for everybody. We're looking now at the microcosm of what could happen as a macrocosm within the United States if indeed we have another major event, whether it's a natural event, whether it's an unnatural event, because they keep telling us that these terrorists are coming over here and they have 27 suitcase nuclear bombs and blah blah blah. What do you think would happen if we had one or two cities inundated with something like that?
I don't think it matters, to be honest.
No.
My opinion of the idea of being struck by terrorism or invaded by the Chinese is very low.
Yeah.
The reason is that I, some time back, did this little bit of research and came up with this theory of the 8 levels of warfare. And we're approaching the 8th level. And within the 8th level of warfare, the Earth prevents anybody from being too aggressive because you're all scrambling for survival.
Wow.
And we're at that point now. You say this is a microcosm, and I would suggest that you're correct, but I would put it another way. I would say this is the leading edge of a wedge that is going to try and scrape us all off the planet. And if we're not speciesists and prepared to surrender ourselves individually in order that the species may survive, then you're in the way of the rest of us that have real work to do.
Wow.
And you got to get serious about it. I'm out there working like mad in my spare few minutes to get a grow dome up so I can grow as much food as possible so I don't act as sucking on the resources that others could use.
Yeah,
because pretty soon the ability to transport food back and forth is going to be very, very dire.
Yeah, like maybe within the next 2 weeks.
And it's going to get worse from there. This is not going to be a temporary situation.
Okay.
We think Iraq is bad. Imagine a situation where we have the planet acting as nastily towards us as we have been acting towards Iraq.
Not a happy thought.
No, and it's occurring now.
Yes, it is. Clif, my friend, oh gosh, you always make my day. I just can't wait to go and try and dream tonight.
Okay, bear in mind, as far as earthquake goes, we don't have a clue that for sure it'll happen, nor do we have any indication geographically. We do suggest that some places such as Tehran and the Honshu Ridge in Japan are as weak a crustal area as the Southern California.
Yeah. Take care, my friend. I'll see you Tuesday.